Welcome back to the channel. It's going to be a lot harder to see me because the lighting isn't the best in this hotel I'm at. So the video is going to be, a little dark on my end, but it's all good. As long as you guys can see the video, that's really all that matters. But, so this video was something I seen somebody had posted in my, my comment section. And this is Paris's, I want to say, Quai Branly Museum hosts final show in France before France for looted Benin treasures. So we're going to get into it. With that being said, we're smoking all my dragons, divine righteous, almighty greats, overachieving, never slacking. We flying back over to France, and this video is going to be very important. So let's start it. Original link in the description. This is from France 24.
Look before these priceless treasures are returned to their rightful place. On display, 26 artifacts looted nearly 130 years ago by the French army from the kingdom of Dahomey in southern Benin.
Let's stop there. Let's stop there. Over how many years did she say? Hold on.
French army from the kingdom. Artifacts looted nearly 130 years ago.
So 130 years ago, these artifacts was looted. Okay, obviously there was a lot that happened around the world, right? And this scene reminds me of Killmonger in Black Panthers. And Black Panther, when Killmonger was in a museum, and he was looking at all these West African artifacts, and he started to talk about how they were like stolen. And it's just a surprise to me that they would even be given back, because why would I'm just curious, like, yeah, let me watch the rest of the video because I'm curious how this even came about.
By the French army from the kingdom of Dahomey in southern Benin. Since then, they've been held in various French museums, most recently the Musée Quai Branly in Paris. Once the current exhibition concludes, they'll be returned to Benin in a move the West African country described as historic.
These art pieces are of essential importance for Benin. It has been more than a century that these pieces have been removed from their historical context. These artifacts returning to the country today is just historical for the people of Benin.
France's decision has potentially far-reaching ramifications in the museum world. Looted colonial-era artifacts can be found in many famous public collections. One example, the Benin bronzes stolen from present-day Nigeria by the British Army in 1897. Hundreds of the looted bronzes are in European institutions. Germany has said it will return.
It's crazy looking at those artifacts, because my mom, she's from West Africa. She's from Nigeria. And looking at those artifacts is like, I don't know if I could be looking at a sculpture of one of my ancestors. That's interesting when I look at that. It's crazy that France would return these, though, because like I said, a lot's happened around the world. It's been a lot of things stolen. There's been a lot of just crimes committed across the globe, and not everybody just says, you know what, I'm gonna return these items. So I'm very curious to what made France really make that decision to say, we want to give this back. I'm curious, that's actually, it's like almost jaw-dropping, because people usually don't return items that they steal. So that says a lot, for sure.
Germany has said it will return more than 1,000 pieces that are part of its museum collections. Berlin also announced it would provide
Germany. Okay. Shout out to Germany.
Pieces that are part of its museum collections. Berlin also announced it would provide funds for a new art museum to be built in Nigeria. One notable critic of art restitution has been the British Museum, which is involved in a decades-long tug-of-war with Greece over the fate of marbles taken from the Parthenon in Athens during the 19th century by Lord Elgin. The museum argues that returning looted works could open a floodgate that would decimate the collections of Western institutions. Some curators say they have practical concerns about returning artwork to politically unstable countries.
For more on this, Josh Riley supports term limits.
It's just crazy that I feel like that should have been a bigger news, at least in America.
Is just
Their rightful place. On display, 26 artifacts looted nearly 130 years ago by the French.
I feel like that should have been big news in America. But I feel like as Americans, we're so busy being brainwashed to think that everybody hates us, as especially as so-called Black Americans. We're so busy brainwashed to think that everybody hates us and nobody likes us, that we won't know what's going on around the world unless we're really like tapped in. We won't know, if there's been peace treaties, or we wouldn't know if we really wouldn't know, because we're so distracted. And unfortunately, so much Americans, so-called Black Americans, they bite the bait anytime it's thrown to them, as far as just being a victim. But it's like, there's so much, like I said, globally that's happened to where people will never see their stuff again. I mean, things have been completely destroyed. Important libraries have been burnt down throughout history by different governments and armies, and people's history have been completely just tarnished, and that you can never get back. And like I said, globally, that's happened. But I personally just feel like this should have been bigger news. I feel like if for example, right, let's look at Hollywood. I remember I talked about Killmonger in Black Panther. I think it was like the first Black Panther movie. And Killmonger, when he was in a museum and he was talking, he was stirring up the emotion of just feeling some type of way, like these artifacts are stolen. Like Hollywood will push that. You get what I'm saying? They'll push that narrative, but in America, we won't get that. They won't show us if things are being given back. They won't show us if something positive, They won't. They won't show us, and not like that. Even if it won't be big news. Like it's just too much negativity that just is everywhere out here. And if I listened to the media out here, I would think that everybody just hates me based off of my color. If I were to listen to a lot of the ignorant comments I get sometimes, like through social media, not YouTube, because YouTube's where I really find out that people really aren't like, they're way more welcoming in other countries than I would ever expect. But say comments on like ignorant comments on Facebooks, like between Americans, I would honestly think everybody hates me. I would, but one thing I learned about YouTube is, one thing I learned from YouTube is people from, let's say, Ireland or Italy, they're not looking at people in America as, just because you have Irish, that Irish ancestry, that don't mean you like Irish. You get what I'm saying? So their whole mindset is different than an Americanized individual with Irish descent. So Americans, we tend to have so much racial problems that I'm not saying out the country doesn't have it, but it seems to me like they use more sense and they be a little more at peace out there. They seem like they don't focus on race as much out the country as they do in America. So shout out to the person that left this in my comments. because I feel like I came across this in the past, but I don't think I would have known. And like, I'm aware that there was, African kings that sold their people, and they made it easy for other people to come in and do what they did. And every nation's had sellouts. That's why every nation, everybody's had people who have. You're always gonna have somebody who backstabs you, and Africa was. It was like, how can I say it? When you're at war with internally, it's always going to be easy for somebody else to come in because you're already at war internally. So when you're selling your people internally, and you just don't care, and you're easily bought, and you helping others to come in, man, I mean, I feel like you only curse yourself at that point. And at that point, but to the people who didn't sell their people out, to the people who really stood on business, shout out to those, shout out to them, and to see those artifacts returned, I'm sure I can only imagine the emotions of the people out there in Benin, West Africa. So, man, I wish this was bigger news. But with that being said, original link in the description. And I'm learning a lot from you guys. I'll be back with more soon. Much love, yeah.